Hey guys, it's Bench175 and this is going to be a first shots review of my new handgun. This is a Shadow Systems MR920 Elite. This has the threaded bronze barrel and the Optic cut. You can tell it's the Elite because it has a window or a lightning cut here in the slide. So I'll just start off with a quick spin of the gun so you can get a feel for how it looks. So that's what first got me interested in this gun, but I found out that the company actually seems to put a lot of thought into the product, and they seem to listen to the customers pretty well, because they had an MR918 that was pretty popular, but they still came out with the MR920 because they saw room for improvements. So on that note, overall this is a really nice handgun, except I'm going to start with a few cons that I think are in this gun right now. So the first is that the optic system is designed in a way to hold multiple optics, but when you mount a Trijicon SRO, or actually any of the optics where the spacer is behind the optic, how this is designed is the holes inside of the slide are placed slightly to the rear of the holes in the optic. So how they explained it is, and I didn't really catch on to this until after I got the gun in my hands, is when you screw this down, it pulls the optic back and compresses the spacer that they include. So you can see it turns out looking pretty nice, but I realize what that does is when the optic is pulled to the back, it doesn't look like it, but it actually opens up a slight gap in front of the optic. So I'll just try and show that to you. You can see this metal band is just sliding in front of the optic. So my preference in this case is actually would have been if the compression against the spacer could have been to the front of the RMR, or actually the SRO, because as we know, when the gun cycles, the most force that the optic feels is when the slide cycles backward and the optic wants to stay in place, so it gets shoved forward. So far this hasn't been an issue. I torqued these down to 15 inch-pounds and they haven't seemed to move. It seemed to hold zero this whole time. But that was just one thing that I noticed about the optic system. The second thing is that the trigger is not 4 to 4.5 pounds like they claim, or at least not yet, and I don't think it will reach it. So I'll go ahead and show you the trigger pull that I'm getting. So this is back. Okay. So you can see that was actually right at 5 pounds. And I'll be testing this again after I do the full break-in. So right now at this point I have about 170 rounds through the gun. There was another one at about 5.5 pounds. So it's only, I think I said 30 rounds until the break-in is over, which is 200 rounds as they say. But yeah, this trigger is not 4 to 4.5 pounds when you're pulling it from where you actually pull a trigger, which is right in the middle of it. Here's the trigger pull. Reset. And then the pull again. The third con is that where something can be improved is, so they added a recoil control ledge here for your thumb. And one thing I noticed is that the ledge is actually thicker right here on this back edge, and back here it's actually a very good width where I feel like my thumb is actually gripping into there. Except what happens is, what's going on is it tapers off as it goes forward, so where your thumb is actually sitting at the front, it doesn't have as much grip as back here. So that'd be cool if they just made this the same thickness all the way through the control ledge, and then that would actually be a lot more useful to control the recoil. And then there are a few other minor things that could be improved in my opinion with the MR920, such as the angle of the slide serrations. So I feel like they're angled a little too steeply. For instance, here on my carry gun, they're a lot less angled, and they're very good because when you rack the slide like this, you're pulling straight backward. it's a little bit too angled for the direction that you're pulling. And actually, it would also be more helpful. So if they straighten them out, they could maybe bring them all the way back to the edge right here. If you don't like to grab onto the optic in order to drop the slide or rack the slide like that, you would grab here, and right here it's perfectly slick and it's slippery for your fingers. Another thing are that there are visible machining marks. So I'm not sure if I can catch that on the camera, but there's a bunch of tiny little circles right here, just to the right of the logo. And on this side, if I can make it catch the light, there's a machining circle right here on the slide. And then finally, this is meant to be Glock compatible in some aspects, but when you take a Glock upper and try and slide this frame into it, it actually gets caught up on the front frame rails. And then when you take a Glock lower and you try and put the Glock slide on there, you get all the way back, but then you run into the connector. I'll post a couple pictures to hopefully show you what I'm talking about, but yeah, Glock uppers and Glock slides and frames don't match perfectly with the MR920. Okay, so now for the good news. With the 170 rounds that I've ran through it, hasn't had a single stoppage, and that has been with both Federal and S&B range ammo, and I've also tested Federal HST and Hornady critical defense rounds, and they all ran perfectly. And the natural point of aim backstrap system that they use this is actually one of the main reasons I got this gun, is because this is the flatter backstrap, and what that does is it points kind of 1911-ish, and it points exactly like my P365 does. So this is pretty awesome. I'm not seeing anybody else really do this, where you can change this out. So I took out the pin so I can show you. You can take this out, and then you can put, this is the highest angle. So this would be to simulate a Glock grip angle, and you can see it does point out a lot more than the flatter one. And let's see, I really like the grip texture on this. The grip texture is pretty aggressive, but not close to like sandpaper texture. So I will be putting some Talon grips on the areas where I think I want a little bit more grip, like this area right here. It takes Glock mags, obviously, so what it comes with is the 15 round PMag, so that's how it fits in there. They drop out nicely. Here's a 15 round Glock mag, drops perfectly, and the 33 round Glock mag. They all work perfectly, and no stoppages through those mags. I really like that they threw in a tall set of night sights, or actually a front night sight and the blacked out rear. And when you can actually see the bottom of them. Let me see if I can get this on camera. You can actually see the top of the front sight just enough that you can actually use these as backup sights. It's been very accurate. So shooting it at 7 yards, I'm getting all 5 round group to be touching holes. So that's accurate enough for me. It does fit Glock holsters. I only have one that's made for a TLR-8, so with the TLR-8 and this, it fits just as well as a Glock should, so that's really good. It has a great beaver tail on here. They redesigned it slightly so that it doesn't print as much, but it's also extended even more for people with bigger hands, but works perfectly well for me. They made a little slide lock protection here. I've never had an issue with that, but that helps for some people. And I like the serrated magazine release. This works very well. They threw in an O-ring for the thread protector, so that's really nice. And this has made it stay through all 170 rounds. And they also throw in a removable mag well that's really easy to put on. So when it's on, it looks just like that, but you have to remove the back strap. Actually, I'll just do it real quick. So you remove the back strap, push out the little holder. So if I want to use that same thin backstrap, flat one, I pop this on, and now I just put the pins in. So now it has this little, as you can see, it has that pin holder. You just pop that over, put the 2 pins in, so now you have 2 pins. 1 pin that goes in for the backstrap, 1 pin that goes in for the mag well, and that'll be held in there very nicely. So yeah, that's awesome that they threw that in there too. And the MR920 does shoot pretty flat. I can't say whether it's much better than my CZP-10F. Yeah, I'll be comparing them, like taking them both to the range, comparing them side by side, and then I'll kind of give a more definitive answer when I make a 500 round review with my MR920. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully I answered a bunch of questions that you might have had about this. Like, subscribe, and share, and I'll talk to you guys later.